before Halloween. We're going to get started right now. And I want to welcome everyone to another Capital Gains Tax Solutions Mastermind. Every single week we are diving in on how to help you escape feeling trapped by capital gains taxes and or to help you help your clients do the same. The big problem we're trying to solve is the ability to grow your wealth while having cash flow and tax flow, and connecting the dots there, because the biggest expense you're going to have, or your clients are going to have, has to do with exiting highly appreciated assets. And if you're a part of the $84 trillion that's transferring in the next 20 years, you have a big tax problem. We all do if we've earned any substantial amount of wealth. And so we've got to talk about ways to defer capital gains taxes, ways to grow your wealth in an environment that is uncertain, to say the least, with many things moving here in different directions. And so that's what we're here to do, is to help you get clarity on exiting, and particularly using the Deferred Sales Trust. That's our niche focus. We believe it is the one strategy that gives you the most flexibility, that has a proven track record, and can give you the ability to be an entrepreneur, or to be passive, to be active, or to be retired, and to not have to be in debt while you do it. In fact, debt is not your friend right now, especially for those who have not had their debt in a fixed position, and they're facing some pain and some uncertainty. And that's what the beauty of the Deferred Sales Trust. You do not have to be in debt. You do not have to be active. You can still stay tax deferred, but you can still be an entrepreneur. And it's incredible once you understand that. And that's in fact what we're talking about today, is how to make the DST an investment and not an expense. So I went to our good friend ChatGPT. If you haven't started to do this, I encourage you to do that. Literally, you can speak into the microphone on ChatGPT and just talk about what you want to talk about. For someone like myself, I was okay typing things, right? Wasn't the best. I think in Spanish class, I was always better speaking it than writing it, right? Or all of the little things there. But I actually could speak better than a lot of my fellow students. Perhaps that's part of my gifts, is communication. So I like to just speak into ChatGPT and tell him or her. I guess it doesn't really have it, or the robot, my thoughts on these things. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those thoughts, and I'm going to try to articulate them as clearly as I can. And so I basically said, hey, ChatGPT, help me have some talking points for a webinar I'll be hosting called How to Make the DST an Investment, Not an Expense. And I want you to talk about the ability to have an extra 30 to 40% of working in your favor, and also how to grow this in a way that's going to make a lot of sense. And so for those who don't know, the Deferred Sales Trust is a tax deferral tool strategy, kind of like a 401k, kind of like a 1031 exchange, where you can defer the capital gains taxes on the sale of highly appreciated assets. What kind of assets? It can be cryptocurrency, it can be business, it can be real estate, it can be a primary home, it can be really anything that has U.S. capital gains tax, and it has at least $1 million of gain. We want to have a big enough deal to make this make sense, right? So that's the first thing to understand. And the number one way, I think, to grow wealth in general is the law of compounding interest, right? Having time as your friend on your side is the best way and the most important way to grow wealth. If you don't have time on your side, in fact, if you're in a lot of debt and that interest rate is eating up in your cash flow, it's like time is going in reverse, and you're losing time, you're losing freedom if you have bad debt in place. But the opposite is true. If you're out of debt and you're investing, and it's earning, and it's building, and it's compounding, it's like time becomes your friend. Okay, and so the law of compounding interest is an amazing way to grow your wealth. And in this scenario, as it pertains to the Deferred Sales Trust, it has to do with an extra 30 or 40% of your proceeds, perhaps. What is the tax? Well, it's somewhere between 25 and 50% of your gain. So if I'm selling a $5 million asset, and I have, let's say, 20% of that would be about $1 million of tax, right? So 40% of that would be about $2 million of tax. And so you have to look at this and say, how do I make time my friend? How do I use the law of compounding interest by deferring the tax using the DST? And that's exactly right. You let the DST do the heavy lifting to lift up your capital, right? Now, in this scenario, it's still also the government's capital, right? Because you still owe the tax to the government, but it's working in the DST. So let the law of compounding interest work in your favor. And this is the miracle of compounding, right? The principle that in fact, Mr. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world, the ability to grow wealth and let it work for you. So, example, if you invest $1 million instead of $600,000, an annual rate of return of say 7%, net of fees, your wealth will be significant over 20 years. In fact, the rule of compounding interest is simply that if you can earn 7% compounding over 10 years, you can double the amount. Right? So if you put $1 million into something and earn 7% compounding, and you let it just let the cash flow roll, that million will be $2 million in 10 years. So the opposite is also true. If you can earn 10% compounding, you're actually going to double that wealth in 7 years. Okay. And so you combine this with the law, which is the next component here of how to make the DST investment non-expense. You combine this with the law of leverage, right? Leverage. And so one of the beauties of owning commercial real estate, when debt is in your favor and it's fixed and it's hopefully lower than your cap rate, meaning you have a positive arbitrage, you start to have the ability to grow wealth on a compounding rate of return as it pertains to leverage. So, for example, I put let's say $2 million down payment on a $10 million asset. Let's say you get 80% LTV. Well, I only have to increase that asset. If I increase that $10 million asset by 10%, it's going to exponentially grow my equity that I put into the deal. And that's the beauty of the deferred sales trust, because you can partner with the trust in an LLC to purchase investment real estate. Now, ideally, you're doing this with the next law, and this is the law of optimal timing. I don't know if it's a law, but it's something that we like to practice here at Capital Gains Tax, which with our clients, is the ability to buy when it makes sense. And as an example, we've been investing mostly not in the stock market, and mostly not actually in hard commercial real estate assets over the last few years. We've actually been putting into a lending fund, and this lending fund has been paying consistently double-digit returns. This particular lending fund has never lost a single dollar, and this particular lending fund has a very safe, conservative underwriting approach, and also it has we call about 30-day liquid. And so we've been waiting for the real estate market to shift, waiting for the stock market to go down, and essentially just wanting to buy things when it made sense, not having to be in debt, not having to be over leveraged, not having time against us. And then now we're starting to see these valuations of these properties starting to really decrease. In fact, I think a general rule of thumb we're hearing is about 25% less for these multifamily assets, which is phenomenal. We're also seeing opportunities to partner with those that are developing real estate, like luxury, high end, and the opportunity to get double-digit returns in 18 months consistently. And part of why I think are attracted to equity and capital has to do with the fact that interest in bank loans are harder to find and more expensive. And so equity is becoming even more attractive, especially in larger amounts, for those who don't want to borrow at 8, 9, 10, 12%. 13 or 14%, depending on what kind of deal and the kind of risk that's involved, versus what they were getting before, which was around 3 or 4%. So using the law of leverage to partner with and invest into deals that you bought at optimal timing, that you're tax deferred, that you're not necessarily in debt, although you might go into debt, and that's the time when we think debt's a good time to go into is when the deals make more sense, right? When you can get a positive arbitrage, or at least make up enough money in a short period of time to be able to cover the debt service. And so the DST, again, is the one vehicle that stands apart that you can use to accomplish all of these things, to unlock all of these things, right? The law of leverage, the law of compounding interest, the law of what we call optimal timing, which leads into the next reason why we think the DST is investment, not an expense, which has to do with depreciation. I think we would maybe coin this, I guess tax flow is a good way to think about it, right? You want every single dollar of investment, of cash flow, ideally you have a tax flow or a write-off or some kind of loss on the other side, or at least paper loss. The best way we found to do that is to buy investment real estate, at which you can do what's called cost segregation studies. You can accelerate the depreciation, and for every dollar, you can have an offset. Well, the neat part of the deferred sales trust, let's say you sold a business, primary home, commercial real estate that was fully depreciated, and you received a promissory note back. Let's say it's a $10 million asset, and we have an interest rate of 8%. So the trust owes you this $10 million plus an 8% compounding. Well, the next day you can form an LLC, partner with the trust, and that trust can go build or buy investment real estate. Well, guess what? That investment real estate has a brand new Well, in fact, that LLC that you invested with has a brand new depreciation schedule because you did not do a 1031 exchange. You use the DST to unlock that new depreciation schedule, which guess what can offset your taxes, which is beautiful. So we've showed the law of compounding interest. We've shown the law of leverage. We use optimal timing. We were not in debt until we wanted to be in debt because the deal actually made sense on that. And again, the DST is the one that unlocks all of these. And so it's really important if you're looking at the DST for the first time that you understand how to make the DST an investment and not an expense because it is not cheap, right? In fact, that's probably our biggest thing that I think happens for people that hold them up. They go, gosh, like that's expensive compared to, and they compare it to something like just my financial advisor managing the capital or my solo 401k when I can manage it myself or whatever the thing may be. And you go, well, you can't look at it just in that small piece of the onion, not just the outer layer. Start to unwrap the onion here and start to dig in. But more than that, you need a team to execute it. And that's what we come in to provide that third-party unrelated trustee services, bringing in some of the best financial advisors in the country and some of the best commercial real estate operators in the country. And we form this team. And this team is what's going to help, we believe, help you to grow your wealth, help you to make great decisions, and to practice all of these laws that we're talking about here. And so those are just a few of the things. Let's see if ChatGPT has anything else to say about this. Those are the main ones. But I think estate tax. You can eliminate the estate tax. So if you're ultra high net worth, we can eliminate the estate tax without having to give it all the way to charity, without having to buy a bunch of life insurance, and without having to have 50 more kids to try to gift it away. So all that being said, if you want to learn more, go to capitalgainstaxsolution.com. I'm going to open it up with some of our strategic alliances to talk more about this. In fact, we have Jake Miller here with Micah Miller as well from Strategic Tax Solutions, our favorite and our go-to for financial advising services. Jake Miller, how are we doing today?
Doing wonderful, Brett. Calling in from Monterrey, Mexico, where we have some business owners doing some great things down here and consulting with them. And Brett, happy to discuss. We've had some amazing talks this week with clients who are looking to sell. Some of them, the biggest asset or the largest sum of money that they've seen in their lifetime. And they are fearing taxes. They are fearing the IRS. They are fearing what to do. They are fearing that the deal won't go through because they're not actually going to make the net that they hope for. And you know what? The DST is swooping in like their hero. You need to put a cape on this DST, Brett, and maybe create a little superhero comic figure or something because this literally is helping out a lot of people today.
Absolutely. And we have Micah Miller today. Mike, how are we doing this Friday? And all the TD Ameritrade just merged with the Charles Schwab, so I imagine you have a lot on your plate to get everything organized. How's it going over there, Micah?
It's awesome. Yeah, all the kinks and wrinkles are starting to work their ways out, and it's good. I was talking with a person earlier this week, and the thing that they really liked was that the DST allows to take the sting out of a seller. Because if they're saying, I really would like to sell, I really don't know that I want to buy something yet, but it really takes out that sting of like, well, you're not going to be taxed on it right away. So
100%. I think on that, I would call it maybe even the fear of missing out on both ends, right? The fear of missing out on, hey, I think I should sell and I want to sell, but I want to pay the tax and I want to still sell it at a decent price and or a decent time of my life for time with my family, time with my kids, my young kids, time with my grandkids, time to travel. Fear of missing out there versus the tax being that big roadblock. Or on the other side, fear of overpaying and losing a lot, right? Staying in debt, doing that 1031 exchange, right? Being forced to buy something and stay in the same position that you've always been in and going, wait, why am I doing this again? Like I've made the $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $50 million and I'm just 1031ing again? Like, am I doing this out of just, this is what I've always known how to do? But oh my gosh, the interest rates don't make sense, and well, I don't really necessarily want to be in debt or deal with these banks right now. And man, I maybe don't want to have to deal with a lot of the regulation, all of the challenges. You're telling me I don't have to do that, or don't have to do it myself. I can do it passively with others in a diversified, methodical, thoughtful way. I mean, to me, you're right. It's the sting on both sides. The sting of missing out and the sting of losing, and the DST becomes like that safe harbor where you can just rest and you can consolidate and you have a chance to grow wealth wealth on your own terms. Jake Miller, what would you add to that?
The idea here is that you have control over time now, because essentially this transaction that everybody is dreading right now, and they're looking at the villain, and the villain isn't always the government or anything like that, but the villain is chopping up your estate, chopping up and revenue sharing before you have to, and going on in life with less than you deserve, but then you're able of maintaining and utilizing for that period of time. So it's incredibly important that we help you know and understand when it is appropriate, when it is correct, and when you have to do that profit share. And if it's not today, how much more can you do with that money now than just give it to the government?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add that too. Remember, the government is actually the biggest winner here because it encourages the entrepreneur to move the capital and keep the money moving into the economy. One of the keystone fundamental facts of the DST to work is it has to be invested into businesses, stock market, real estate, investment real estate. So real estate or business purpose, right? Investment, real estate or business purpose. That's key, right? Same with an IRA or 401k. They don't let you put an IRA into things that can be deemed as personal. There are some certain things there that you know, depending, they actually have open up some of it for that down payment. That's kind of another topic. But for the most part, you put X amount of money in an IRA, it's going into a business and investments, and until you take money out, you're paying the tax. But this encourages and builds the economy. It also encourages the flowing of funds for people to create new business and new opportunities, have new employees and new taxes. So it's not something where they're not winning. They are winning. In fact, they're winning the most. The government's getting fed, but it's not necessarily like Jake said, at the rev share of your cash flow right now. Although, as you receive cash flow, pay some tax, and so that's a key distinction here. Rebecca Munson, to bring you in, we're going to talk about some real estate here. I mean, what are you seeing up in Lake Tahoe Trucking? She's one of our strategic alliances up there. She sells luxury, high end. What are you seeing, Rebecca? And what are your thoughts on what we've been talking about so far?
So definitely seeing our luxury market soften just a little bit. So, but you know, it's the typical time of year. We just had some snow the other day, so people are kind of freaking out a little bit about, you know, winter coming and should they have their houses on the market. But you know, timing wise, you know, homes are still in high demand. So, you know, timing wise, it makes sense to sell, especially if you're freaked out about maintenance or dealing with any of those kind of things. And, you know, put the money in a safe harbor, take some time, figure out what you want to do moving forward, and then reinvest it in real estate if that's what you want to do. But, you know, think about it. Take some time.
Yep, very well said. Very well said. I agree. It's still a decent time to sell. I mean, obviously, it's not as ideal as it was a year and a half ago before rates jumped the way they did. But there's still just a massive undersupply of units that's not going away. In fact, a lot of the folks are starting to form the households and they're wanting to start the families and be out of the apartment complexes, although there's still a huge demand for that. So real estate's not going away. What we're seeing is a debt challenge, and even luxury high end. I mean, I toured 30 house sites on the coast of Florida last weekend, and they're saying, hey, I mean, there's certain points some people just have the money and they just buy the thing. They buy the houses for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, $15 million. They're still going to have the tax. So it's definitely deal by deal specific, city by city, market segment and asset class specific as well. Okay, let's see here. I don't even know if we have DJ Carpenter on. I haven't seen this yet. Let me see on this other side. If he is, I'd love to hear from Mr. Jake. Otherwise, we can just start continuing here. If people have questions along the way, put them in the chat as well. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. It could be really any questions or thoughts or comments on what we've been talking about on the DST. And any feedback, we always love the discourse, and so that's why we're here, not just to talk, but to hear from you. So please put it in the chat any questions you have, and or unmute yourself and say hello to us. And Jake, myself, Micah, and maybe Rebecca will jump in and talk to you about it. So I will pause for 7 seconds. If no one answers, then I will go back to the Jake Miller and we'll talk some more.
Actually, I had a quick comment. So the nice thing about this, I mean, if you're talking a 1031 you have to go back into a 1031. You know, you have to go back into the same like kind type of asset. And the nice thing about the DST is it doesn't have to be the same type of asset. You could be selling a business and then go into real estate. You know, it's very flexible in that sense. And time-wise, you've got time on your hand to find the right deal.
100%. 100%. And in fact, you can, not only that, you can build real estate from the ground up, right? And that's part of what we're looking at, building these luxury homes on the beach from the ground up and getting an excellent return, and do it in segments. In other words, this developer that we're talking with, he doesn't need all of the $5 million all at once. He might need $2 million to buy the land and $3 million to build the project, and he can sell it for $10 or $12 million. It's going to take about 18 months, but it's going to be in tranches. And so the neat part of the DST is it can send out those funds in those smaller amounts as needed, and in the meantime be invested into liquid investments, right? And to things that are still earning interest, are still building wealth. And that's the beauty. You're not having that 1031, everything has to go all at once, all into one asset, all into one deal, all within the 45-day identification, 180 days to close, which is part of why developers loathe the 1031, because they're in the business of developing, not 1031ing. And so once you understand those rules, and they have the DST unlocks and gives you freedom to not have to abide by those rules because we're not doing a 1031. Again, it becomes an investment, not an expense. Unlocks what you're trying to do, and that's really key. You got to clarify what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what impact it will be for you and your family with the wealth, and then what strategy and teams can help you to execute that. And that's why we're here. We want to encourage you to go to capitalgainstaxers.com, schedule a time, sit down with us, and we will specifically map out a game plan for you and for your exit plan. So,
Brett, we did have a question come through. So
right.
Terry wanted to know a little bit more about how is the cost of the DST calculated. And I would also add on to that, just looking at the deal and the net proceeds, any debt, any depreciation in your comments for that.
Absolutely. I'll start there and I'll have Jake tag on here. So first of all, there's the first fee. It has to do, it's the law firm. It's our business partners who do all of the tax and legal work and audit defense. There's a one-time fee up front based upon the gross sales price of the asset. There's just 1.5% on the first million and 1.25% on anything above that. So let's just imagine you're selling a $5 million business, okay? And on that $5 million, that first million, we would calculate a $15,000 fee on that first million. And then we would take the $4 million that's remaining and we would times that by 1.25%. And that would equal 50,000 plus 15 total would be 65,000. So it'd be a one-time $65,000 fee to the tax team. Provides lifetime audit defense at no additional charge to you. They also working with your CPA to make sure we're properly reporting everything. That's that one. Now, the trustee fee, along with the financial advising fee, it's kind of the total team of the management of the assets. It's about 1.5% to 2% on the net proceeds into the trust. So let's just say in this example, you had $2 million of debt, including closing costs and all of these other things. And let's just say $3 million hits the account. Okay, on about $3 million, no matter how and where you invest the funds, whether it's all in the real estate, although we always keep some liquidity here, whether it's all into the stock market, whether it's partnering and you're doing deals with you, it's typically always typically a mix here, but just generally speaking, it's about 1.5% to 2%. So let's just say 2% at the high, that's $60,000 on the recurring fee on $3 million, and that would be based upon the value and the net proceeds into the trust. So that's the main fees. There's a miscellaneous fee of $13.50 or so for the tax return for the trust, and financial reporting of $250. But our goal typically is to return to you that $3 million plus a compounding rate of return net of fees of approximately 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9%, depending on your risk tolerance. I will pass it to Jake, let him add a subtract for you, but he'd say the same thing in a different way so that everyone can digest this.
At the end of the day, it's a super easy balance. In fact, Brett, I'm not going to touch on the numbers so much, but I'm going to say, hey, put on the scale. I'm going to pay my taxes right now, right? I'm going to lose lose 30 to 50% of my asset. Or I'm going to pay 1.5% on the first $1 million and 1.25 after that. And I'm going to pay an ongoing fee for really cool people like Brett, myself, or Jake Carpenter to assist you with the ongoing livelihood of the Deferred Sales Trust. Meanwhile, that it has assets and you're reinvesting, you're growing it. And by the way, you might even effectively, should things be significant enough, move assets out of your estate and avoid that very awful death tax or estate tax, which is a 40% hit. And so it is important, it is critical that you know where all the fees are coming from and that you know where they're all going and that you understand from a cash flow perspective how this is advantageous to you. Everybody's very specific scenario and situation. We are more than happy and willing to talk with you on a one-on-one basis and go over the exact numbers, all of it beforehand so that you have transparency. You know exactly what you're getting into and that you are educated, you know how this will help you, what you can do with it, and where you can go with it. Deferred Sales Trust. And Brett, that's ultimately important because I want to tell you, since we're coming up on Halloween, a horror story. We have a very sad story to tell. There's about a man owned a business, sold it for $40 million for a $19 million gain. And his CPA said, hey, don't do the Deferred Sales Trust thing because monetized installment sales are illegal. And client didn't do any more research or education, went down the path, sold his business, paid $7 million taxes. Now, Brad, can you turn my horror story into like something different? Can you tell us what could he have done had he come to us first instead of coming to us after the fact?
Absolutely. We call it building a capital gains tax exit plan. And the neat part of the way we work too is a no cost, no obligation basis. We really don't want to sell you anything. We only just want to show you the track record and show you the team and show you how we execute this business plan. And the amazing part of the Deferred Sales Trust is the fact that it's batting 1,000. So what does that mean? That means like every single time it's gone up to plate and it's had an IRS audit, it's hit a grand slam. Not a single change or finding. And yet, it can feel overwhelming for those who are exiting and relying on their tax and legal team to provide their feedback on it, because you can't blame it. You can't blame the person who wants their CPA to say yes to something because that CPA has been the person who said yes or no to all of their tax things in the past. Although it's tough about that is they're generally the general practitioner. They're not the brain surgeon. They're more like the family doctor who does the annual checkups and shows how you're doing. But if you need a brain surgery on a health thing, you would go to them and you would actually be concerned. You'd say, hey, I think I have a brain tumor. And they would say, if they said, well, great, let's open you up and let's operate. You would probably say, well, how many of these have you done, Mr. Doctor? And they say, well, I've never done really any of these. I've heard of these before, but let's do it. Now, that family practitioner would never do that because that'd be malpractice. In fact, what we believe just happened, what Jake just said in that horror story, is CPA malpractice, and that they assume certain things, and when you assume certain things, guess what happens? Sometimes you can lose big. And the DST couldn't be further apart from the monetized installment sale, but if you're relying on somebody who's just dabbling and understanding the nuances and the differences and not knowing the track record, not knowing that the DST is significantly different on all of the key points for why it's actually worked for 27 years, and it's not on the watch list, it's never been on the Dirty Dozen, it's never been on the watch list, it's never actually had a failed single audit, then these type of things can happen. And so what would a good family practitioner do in this situation? They'd say, you know what? I've heard of a couple of these things. In fact, here's a couple referrals that you could go to who are specialists in this area. They could be tax attorneys. They could be advanced CPAs who help with exit planning. They could even be, hopefully, capital gains tax, which is at one point. And they could sit down with the tax attorney and CPA who created the structure. And had they known, his name is Todd, had they known Todd, then they probably would feel more comfortable. But I also don't want to put it all on the CPA here because I don't know how quickly that the client brought this decision, this lifetime wealth decision that's going to affect generations to come for the family wealth to them. Was it in the last 30 days, last 21 days? In fact, we just lost a deal this week. It's closing in a couple weeks, and he had heard about a different strategy. And I asked him, I said, and he said, well, Brett, but I've seen you and I really want to work with you, but I feel like it's too late. I go, well, have you signed anything? He goes, no, I haven't signed anything yet. I go, okay, well, then it's not too late. He goes, but I've really gone down the road with this CPA for a long time. And I go, okay, so it sounds like you feel like you owe him something because you kind of found us by researching what he was offering versus what we were offering. I go, I get that. I go, I have a solution for that, but I kept working with him. I said, let's talk to the CPA. Let's figure out a way to work with him on this. But I said to him, a couple questions. I said, how many of these has this group done that you're looking at? And they said, he goes, yeah, it's somewhere in the 10s to the 20s. And I said, the 10 to the 20s. I go, well, with the DST, it's thousands and thousands and thousands. I go, doesn't it feel like you're putting a lot of risk in your own plate by going with someone who's done 10 to 20, 30s of these versus thousands and thousands and thousands? And this is a professional practitioner, and he was a very reasonable, kind, smart guy. And he goes, yeah, no, I hear you. And then he said, I want to work with you. And then we started to go down this. And then all of a sudden, it felt like there was an emotional roadblock that hit where it was, well, I feel like I owe it to this guy to do the deal because he felt like he already committed to the deal with him. And I go, okay, well, if your CP has your best interest at heart, and if you're open to it, we're happy to get on a call with him and work something out where we can all be a win-win-win-win here. But I go, the worst case scenario of the horror story is you go down the route of this other one that hasn't been tested by the IRS, that doesn't have lifetime audit defense, and or it has a short track record, right? Something that's just a couple years old, with somebody who's only dabbling in this on the side. I go, if that was what you were doing for your healthcare or your care, because he was in the health field, I go, would you want that? And he goes, no, of course not. And I go, well, that's kind of the thing we're always dealing with: emotions, track record, and then trying to also time and squeeze it. So pass it back to you, Jake. What would you glean out of that, Jake? And what can we do to help people know, like, and trust us faster?
Absolutely. Very good. In fact, I had a private message here in the group. Somebody was just saying, hey, why are installment sales bad? Installment sales are not bad. In fact, there's an entire IRS section code 453 that talks about how to properly use and implement installment sales and how that can be, somebody that is educated and somebody that helps other people with education on this matter can help you understand that installment sales are a common tool in a lot of different tax strategies. Now, monetized installment sales, Brett, which couldn't be farther from what we're doing here, have been under a lot of scrutiny and are on the IRS's Dirty Dozen list. And so for somebody else to compare what we are doing to that shows that they truly don't understand what we're doing and that they have not even looked into it. They have not educated themselves. And as you mentioned, Brett, if a CPA is providing comments and advice on something that they've not been educated on, that is malpractice. Anyway, going a little bit further, a monetized installment sale, what is that? Essentially, we are creating a loan so that it appears like the sale didn't actually happen, but we're advancing bulk majority of the proceeds to us so that we have all the money under the guise or the costume, the Halloween costume of we didn't really get the money. You can see that there are some red flags there, and that based on the sniff test, based on the touch and feel test, based on all the tests that the IRS does, it doesn't really pass the snuff test. And that's why we recommend that people don't do a monetized installment sale. But that a deferred sales trust truly does keep at arm's length the transaction. That's why we have to have an eligible trustee, unbiased, third party, unrelated individual who wasn't the best man at your wedding, wasn't your employee, wasn't somebody that, a secretary at your work, or somebody who was under your power, control, and influence, so that this deferred sales trust is not just an ATM that you can get money in and out of whenever, but that truly it is its own entity, and truly it operates independently. And you went from ownership of this asset that you sold to now lendership or creditorship of the trust assets, which is that, in fact, Brett, from my point of view, I'm no attorney, but a more powerful legal position where at any given time should the trustee, or should the creditor want to call on the funds that are in the trust, they can do so. And that working relationship, that structure allows for the ongoing deferral of what would have otherwise been the most taxable transaction of many people's lives.
All of that is perfect, and I'll add one other but not an ad. I'll just try to make it even simpler, because that's really our goal here, is to make this so simple that you guys would say, and gals would say, okay, let's go, right? This makes sense. I'm doing it. It makes sense. With the monetized installment sale, you gotta ask yourself, you sold a $30 million asset. Where's that $30 million? And they go, is it in your personal account? And they go, yeah, it's right here in my personal account. But I got this loan here. Oh, so it's in your personal account, this $30 million, and you're claiming that it's not taxable because you have this, like Jake said, this situation with the loan, that you did a loan here. And that's the key. Where the deferred sales trust, where's that $30 million? It's in the trust account. Okay, so it's not in your personal account. Very different. It's in a trust account. Now, do you own that trust? No, you do not own that trust. That's the key, right? In fact, that's part of why there's a third party unrelated trustee. Now, you are owed all of the $30 million plus the rate of return, but it's not in your personal account, which becomes taxable. Now, as the payments are made to your personal account, is the amount that's paid to you taxable? Yes, that's the point. You pay tax as you receive it. Now, the DST plus, by the way, your children can be the beneficiaries. But it's not until you pass away that they inherit inherit that. So that's the key here, and that's also why the Deferred Sales Trust is not on the Dirty Dozen. It's not on the IRS watch list. 27 years, and now you might say, "Well, I'm not doing the monetized installment sale, Brett. In fact, this particular gentleman was doing something else, some kind of installment sale thing." And I go, "Great." And by the way, and he goes, "It's cheaper. It's cheaper. It's way less expensive." I go, "Okay, love that." And every tax strategy works until it's audited. So, I mean, if you can do a cheaper, more effective one that has the track record and that's been audited and it's been through all the things and gives you the flexibility of the team and the group to invest with, great. That's the one to go with, right? But you're going to get what you paid for. And the worst case scenario is you think you have what you have, and in 2 years is typically when the audit happens. 2 years after your close of your sale, you get audited just to find out you owe all the tax. And so you're classic example of jumping over dollars to pick up dimes. It's a huge mistake, and unfortunately, we called it with the monetized. We said this doesn't work. We've never done it. We won't do it. And for all of these reasons, we said it for years. And people said, "Well, it's less expensive." And in fact, the monetized people had this website up, but it's like DST versus monetized. And you can do all these things, and it's less expensive. You're like, "Well, if you put it that way, this is the perfect trust. Go do that one." And we told people. In fact, I think we only lost a couple deals over the years to them after we explained it to folks. But some folks just wanted the cheaper, all the money in my account, no trustee, all of these things, and it became, now it's over. Now they have to fully report it. There could be obviously taxes owed, penalties, interest, and for what? Because you want to go with the cheaper, less expensive, more control options. That's the risk you risk in taking, and unfortunately, some people make that decision, and that's the decision. It's your money, but we would encourage you, we implore with you, please look at the evidence, bring the CPA in, bring the questions, and we would love the opportunity to work with you. That being said, we do have Jake Carpenter here today. Jake's sipping on hopefully some good coffee there in Washington. Has the weather turned, Jake Carpenter? What is going on up there? Is the leaves turning the different colors, and how is the climate up there right now in Washington?
It's definitely not Corvette weather anymore. So yes, it has changed. We woke up at 34 degrees this morning and got a little snow a couple hours out of town when I was doing some appointments a few hours up the road. So yeah, great to be here though. Excited. Weather's changing. It's time to help more people this winter. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. And what would you say to someone, Jake, when they're like, how to make the DST an investment and not an expense? Or Jake, it seems like it's really expensive. What would be your feedback for someone who might say that?
The most interesting thing about, that argument, Brett, we get that all the time, Jake Miller, myself, and you, and probably Rebecca as well, is they always look at the fees for setting up the trust, even though it does include lifetime audit defense, even though it does include a team of professionals. Our job is to make this an asset, not a liability. And when you look at all the fees that purchase services that are designed to enhance the performance of the funds inside the trust, even if you look at those fees as a liability and not an asset, compared to the taxes that you're going to pay, they literally dwarf the amount of taxes that most people are going to have to pay. So the question really is would you rather pay a lot of tax or a little bit of fees? When it comes down to using the strategy, and then if you take it one step further, what are those fees actually going to do for you? And one of the things in using the Deferred Sales Trust is you get a team of professionals like those of us on the call today that are designed to work with your CPA, that are designed to work with your attorney, that are designed to work with your estate plan. A case that Brent and I are recently working on, the first call that we had with this mid-40s couple uncovered a huge potential tax liability that no one had even talked to them about. Federal estate tax, 40% death tax, because their estate was much more than 24 million. They were looking at a $40 to $60 million business sale. And so you can argue that in and of itself is quite a bit of value when it comes to using the Deferred Sales Trust team. That's besides the fact of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could potentially save by not having to pay the capital gains tax now and deferring. So, again, we're there to make sure that the proceeds in the trust are fulfilling the things that it needs to do for the lender or the original seller. But we're there as a team to create value, to create opportunity, to work with your estate plan, to work with your retirement plan, to work with you as an individual. Your needs are going to change. You're going to be more active sometimes. You're going to be more passive other times. And we are here as a team to engage your current professionals to ensure that you get to where you want to go. You get from where you're at to where you want to go in the future.
Fantastic. Yeah, very well said. You can learn more about Jake by going to carpentercapitalllc.com, carpentercapitalllc.com. And more about Jake Miller and Micah Miller by going to strategictaxsolutions.com, strategictaxsolutions.com. Jake, anything to add, and or anyone else have any questions as we open it up? Anything in the chat, Micah? Maybe if you have anything here, you can tee it up for us.
Just that it's a perfect time of year to put on that costume, Brett, because it's getting cold, right?
It absolutely is. We're getting excited. Tuesday's a big day, man. We got the 5 kids going out. We have to send some pictures here. All the dress up and all the fun. So yeah.
I think it would be hilarious for strategic or for capital gains tax solutions to go on out there, dressed like Uncle Sam and the tax man, and the tax man got you. So beware, and see where we can take it this Halloween.
I think that's a great idea. We'll call it. What was it? DST man on the street, and we'll have like Uncle Sam like collecting taxes from like a couple of the kids, and then have like one of the kids like fighting off the tax man and like saving the day with the tax flow shirt.
That's right. The kids got to be the winners, and the tax flow T-shirt. That's right.
Yeah, we can tape that. I think that would go well on the YouTube channel. What do you think, Rebecca? Would that show well? You think?
Yeah, I definitely think it would.
Yeah, maybe we gotta get less serious and like more like just laid back and like playful with some of these things. Although it's so serious, but maybe that helps people to relax a little bit. I don't know. Sometimes that can be a little too serious, but I also don't really like tax very much. Jake, what do you think?
People tell me the same thing all the time. That's why I'm cracking jokes today. So let's take the seriousness to the height of jovialness, but then back down to the seriousness when we need to.
Right, don't take yourself too seriously, but take your guys' wealth and exit planning very seriously. So
that's right.
I think that's a good idea. I'm gonna have to get on Amazon and see if I can click the button and get an Uncle Sam costume.
All right, we did have a question come through. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, Terry, if you want to unmute and ask a little bit more questions later, that's fine. Any videos comparing the DST to Roth, cash value, life insurance, liquid investments?
Okay, so it sounds like Terry, you want to unmute yourself and you can ask the full question. I think I get the essence of it, but do you want to engage a little bit here so we can chat?
Sure. I'm trying to. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to prepare for the future a little bit here. I've got several investments that could kick out 7-figure returns in the next few years, and I plan to keep doing that for another 20, 30 years. And the question I'm dealing with is, what is the most efficient way to maximize my returns and also turn around those returns and
Yeah, and we have a certified financial planner and Jake Miller, and also another financial planner, Jake Carpenter. So I'm going to tee them up with some questions to try to answer your questions. I'll start with Jake Miller. Jake Miller, if you were to use, Roth IRA in a certain scenario, what would that be? And if Terry is exiting a highly appreciated asset, how would we potentially work in the Roth, either with the DST and or could it substitute? Walk us through that, Jake Miller.
Absolutely. Now, Terry, if you have another really big tax offsetting event, and you align that tax offsetting event with this very taxable event that you might have by selling something big, then we could offset the tax ramifications of paying all the taxes now and putting some of this stuff into a Roth, depending on a number of other scenarios. In fact, whether you're in politics or not, there's a guy named Mitt Romney, and I'm just going to bring out one of the things that he's known for, and that's having a $25 million Roth account. How did he get all that money in there, and how did it grow like that? And how did it all grow tax-free? Fantastic. But a lot of the stars have to align for that to work. If you are having a highly appreciated asset sale, or if you are selling a highly appreciated asset, there's certain things that you can do. One of the biggest things that the DST does for you is it puts timing back in your hands. So, oftentimes with our clients who want to try to fund like a mega backdoor Roth, which is how you get a lot of money into a Roth in just a few years, is they have the power over timing because of the deferred sales trust. Meaning, they had a really big transaction once. They sold that warehouse, took all the proceeds of the warehouse into the deferred sales trust, didn't have to pay any taxes. Then, mitigating the tax ramifications over like 5 or 10 years, you're taking money out of the deferred sales trust and utilizing other, like maybe oil and gas investments or charitable contributions or something like that to offset the tax ramification of pulling it out of the deferred sales trust, which the deferred sales trust is just deferring the taxes. But you're looking for a way to pull them out slowly but surely over time, maybe pay off or offset their other tax strategies, the tax ramification of pulling out little by little, and then through a company, maybe a mega backdoor Roth, through a Roth 401k or something of that nature, you're able to eventually leak or drip into this Roth over a number of different years, and you're able to accumulate a large amount of assets into a Roth. Now, why do people do that? They would do that if inside of their Roth, it might be a self-directed Roth, you are investing in like a tech company that's going to have a 10 or 20 times multiple. You are investing in real estate that you're buying at a discount, maybe from an auction, from a courthouse, and you're going to turn around and sell it for a 200% gain. People do this type of a strategy to get money into a tax-free future vehicle so that the growth that would otherwise be hugely taxable, enormously taxable, is tax-free. That's why people try to funnel money into a Roth. And that's why Mitt Romney had all of these companies out there invested through his own Roth in these companies, and it exploded. Well, he's able to get access to tax-free in the future. That may not be your situation, may not be your scenario, may not be a good fit. If what you have today is a highly appreciated asset that you're selling, how do we put time back in your hands so you can use all the other financial tools and tax strategies? A deferred sales trust often is the most powerful tool because of the power of timing. You get to choose as you take the money out, when you get to take it out, and it gives you the power of timing to organize your financial life in such a way that you can mitigate the taxes when they come as you take the money out.
Gary, how did Jake do there?
Yeah, that was a good explanation. So to put a little more information out there, I don't have a single large taxable event in my future. I have multiple investments, and they're maybe the next returns are going to be in the $1 to $2 million, $3 million range. But I plan to reinvest those and keep growing. So each time they do a cycle, they're going to get a little bit bigger, by a factor of 3 or something like that.
Terry, may I ask you one question about that? Are you selling real estate or a business? What is it that you own?
It's oil and gas, multifamily, both syndications as well as directly owned. That kind of, and there's some other stuff, but that would kind of be a good starting point.
Okay. And are any of the assets $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain?
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then on the assets, one part of what I'm thinking is, in what state are you in, Terry?
Currently in Washington, but I'm planning to move in the next couple of years.
Okay. Okay. And so, yeah, let's just say you deferred an extra 25 to 50% on that. And let's just say it's a $3 million exit, you deferred an extra million. Let's just say the basis was zero, just hypothetically. Part of my idea would be here that the $3 million, let's say at 8% was paying you, you could take a portion of that and maximize your Roth contribution. If you had children as well, perhaps maximize that. Now it's still taxed, right? Because it's post-tax, but at least you're using what you would have paid of $1 million of tax, along with the other $2 million in the trust, so a total of $3 to earn interest on it to fund a Roth. And so that's my first thought there. I'm going to pass it to Jake Carpenter because I know we talked about also the ability to do cash value life insurance. So Jake Carpenter, talk about how you would use cash value life insurance with the DST and how you could build wealth with that.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I'm in Washington myself, Washington State here, and I use a lot of, kind of like Jake Miller said, advisors like he and I were not like your normal Edward Jones, Charles Schwab, Waddell and Reed, D.A. Davidson type guys. We are macro advisors, which means we work with all of your advisors. We are generally pretty well versed in every different kind of financial product, from income producing real estate to cash value life insurance. And particularly one of the things that I use alongside of the Deferred Sales Trust is most of my clients are ultra wealthy. They have a significant amount of real estate portfolio, similar to a lot of the cases we work on. They may have one or two projects that are selling that are creating an event that we would use the Deferred Sales Trust on. But on another hand, with the life insurance, a lot of them have significantly sized balance sheets, and we use strategies where we use lots and lots of large permanent life insurance, where we use the real estate cash portfolio to collateralize a loan where a bank would pay the premiums on the life insurance. You get to keep all your investments invested just the way they are right now. So everything stays invested, but some of those assets, you might have a line of credit, or you may have a cash account that you pledge as collateral. The bank would use that as collateral, but the bank would pay the premiums on the life insurance contract, and it's usually quite a large premium, until it gets to the point of where the cash inside the policy is growing at a rate where it outruns the interest rate in the loan. And so while there is some risk to it, it's not risk-free, of course, and it's not free life insurance, but it can create a significantly sized amount of cash inside the policy, sometimes millions of dollars that can be accessed income tax free. Think of it as a Roth IRA on steroids, because we generally don't overfund these contracts, which turn them into what's called a modified endowment contract. We keep them under the funding limits, so you can basically treat these as a Roth IRA as long as you follow some rules. So, as Jake Miller was saying, you use multiple strategies together, and maybe distributions from the trust that are offset with a tax-friendly event, so you're left net with no tax. That's another way to fund these large life insurance contracts. Generally, life insurance, permanent life insurance, is free from creditors and lawsuits. It's generally completely liquid. You can borrow against it after you get up to your basis and create a tax-free access to growth on your cash, and it leverages a income tax-free death benefit and is structured properly, income tax-free, and federal estate tax-free. So I won't get into that much more than that, but Jake Miller and myself, we do a lot of planning around the Deferred Sales Trust as a liquidity event to make sure that what you're doing with the Deferred Sales Trust is actually going to work very seamlessly with your estate plan, retirement plan, income plan. It's a three-dimensional type of situation.
That sounds something I'd like to find out more about. The service that you just described.
Perfect. Well, Jake will reach out to you, Terry. In fact, maybe you can set up a time. You guys get together. What part of Washington are you in?
Auburn, Washington, just south of Seattle, about 25 miles.
Yeah, I'm actually about 3 hours east of you in Kennewick, Washington.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that's it.
Yeah, if you want to just send me a note with your number, I'd be happy to reach out.
Okay, will do.
All right. Jake Miller, you want to add anything else to the life insurance discussion there?
No, just the fact that true planning comes with a multifaceted approach because life is not simple. We like to make it simple by bringing all the pieces together in a way that works best. We don't try to overdo it in any one aspect because we're not salespeople. We're educators and we're consultants. We help you bring it all together in the best, most optimized way for taxes as well as your investment objectives.
Absolutely amazing. I want to just applaud Mr. Jake Miller and Jake Carpenter today. I feel like I got an education on the Roth and the life insurance. Can we give them a round of applause for everybody? And we're wrapping it up. We're at the top of the hour. Jake Carpenter, people want to find you. Where can they find you?
www.carpentercapitalllc.com, or you can call our offices here in Kennewick at 509-396-5292.
Perfect. Jake Miller and Micah Miller, if they want to find you, well, let's let Micah. Micah has to talk a little bit. Micah, where can they find you and Jake?
Absolutely. At strategictaxsolutions.com. And our 800 number is 800-773-1848.
Amazing. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also call our number 916-886-2986. That's 916-886-2986. Yes, that is out of the great state of California. It is out of the state capital, the center of all tax, maybe the entire world. It's big, but yeah, that's where we're from. This is why we're on the front lines, and we want to thank you for attending the webinar today. And we want to encourage you to think about how to make the DST an investment, not an expense, to build a capital gains tax exit plan, to plan, pre-plan, and plan even more before you exit so that you're not regretting or having the horror stories that we talked about today with huge tax, huge regret, and not having the time and the space to make deliberate, conscious decisions on your exit planning using the DST. Check out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan on Amazon, hit #1 bestseller. DJ Miller's in the book as well. I have a couple chapters as well. And then we have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, which is pretty cool. You might enjoy watching enjoy reading that. Although I will be doing some videos in the future with Kevin. More to come on that, which is going to be kind of cool and exciting. That being said, I appreciate everyone out there. We will see you again next week. Have a great Friday, a great Halloween, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Mafe, aquí tienes el recordatorio. Tomar pastillas. Si ya terminaste, simplemente dime que ya terminaste con el recordatorio.